So is this the best PCC for the money? Today we're talking about the EP9 by Extar. So welcome back to the MuzzleBroke channel, everybody. I appreciate you joining me today. And we actually have an incredibly interesting system that we're going to chat about today, the EP9. We're going to go ahead and go over the specs of this system, this build specifically, and the manual of arms. We'll go ahead and talk about our first impressions out of the box. We'll take you to the range for some first shots with the gun. We will cover the performance of the EP9 over the 1,000 round range review. We'll go over what I feel is the best use of this system, and we'll go ahead and tie everything together and answer the question, is this worth your money? So we'll go ahead and start with the specs of the gun. So the EP9 is a 9mm direct blowback pistol caliber carbine with a 6.5 inch barrel with 1/2x28 threads. This system has an overall length of 23.8 inches, a height of 7.9 inches, and a width of 2 inches. We do have a black nitride bolt and barrel, along with a single stage AR trigger, a non-reciprocating left-sided charging handle, and impressively a weight of only 4 pounds. To achieve that light weight, this gun does come with a polymer lower and polymer upper. The system is fed by Glock compatible magazines and internally does have a recoil dampening system. And the system MSRPs at only 450 smackaroos. So now that we know what comes from the factory, let's talk about what we did to this build. Starting at the front of the gun, we did go ahead and add a suppressor. We ran this 1,000 round range review with 500 rounds suppressed with the Fletcher Rifle Works 9mm can, and 500 rounds unsuppressed just with the blast shield the gun comes with. The EP9 ran incredibly well suppressed, so we just kind of kept the suppressor for its final build configuration. I am running just a little Arisaka hand stop on the front just to get a better grip on the gun. We are running a PowerTac flashlight with a pressure pad that's held onto the system by this German Flecktarn goon tape. Running a little further back, we do have the Frenzy optic by Vector, a nice little dot that I thought just looked good on the system. We got our stick Glock mag with that goon tape as well. And this build did come with Extar's little thin brace here that, although it looks pretty unimpressive, actually does give you a decent shoulder weld on the system. The manual of arms on this gun is reminiscent of an AR-15 with a couple of key differences. We do have our typical AR-15 mag release, AR-15 safety and trigger, and AR-15 bolt release. The main difference between the EP9 and a traditional AR is going to be the placement of that charging handle, with the charging handle being on the left-hand side of the system. It comes apart similarly to an AR-15. There's one rear pin that you punch out, and then the gun kind of hinges up and out. Incredibly easy to take this apart. So my first impressions of the gun were good, but to be honest, with little hints of concern. I really liked kind of the AR nature of the gun. We have an M-LOK handguard and a Picatinny rail up top that does enable us to throw on any M-LOK accessories. We do have an AR-15 pistol grip and an AR-15 trigger group, so we can upgrade those very easily if we would like. Picking up the gun out of the box, it's just incredibly lightweight. Even with all the stuff we threw on it here, it's a very easy system to pick up and maneuver. So, concerns out of the box. Concern number one is that it takes Glock mags. Now, I know a lot of people like when their PCCs take Glock mags. Personally, I've had some mixed experiences. I've had some systems that run really well on Glock mags, and some that just jam like there's no tomorrow, and it's really caused me some issues in the past. So, that was a concern off the rip. My second concern was the all-polymer construction. Although I did really appreciate how lightweight the gun was, having a polymer system made me a little bit nervous. Not that I thought the gun was poorly constructed or that it had a poor build quality, because that's absolutely not the case, but just because I wasn't quite sure how a polymer system would survive 1,000 rounds. But thankfully, after reviewing the system, neither of those initial concerns were a problem. So after building her out, doing my first impressions here at the house, I was incredibly pumped to get this to the range for first shots. So with further ado, we have the very first shots with the EP9 by Extar. Let's see how she feels. Okay, that is actually incredibly impressive. This gun is very, very light. That is the first thing you notice about it. And I was a little concerned, hesitant, curious what the actual recoil impulse of this gun was going to be, just given how lightweight it is. But it really feels nice. Like, it's really not very snappy at all, very controllable. Locks back, everything good? All right, let's run the piss out of it. So the initial shots were great with this. I was having a ton of fun, very low recoiling system, and true to my word, after the first shots, we did run the piss out of this gun. I know this is supposed to be a 1,000 round range review, but I think we went through about 1,500, if not more. And that's just because it was a ton of fun to shoot, and we were not having any malfunctions. And one of the things about this range review that really surprised me was how well this system fed from our Glock mags. And when I say this thing ran off Glock mags, I mean this thing fed from everything. It fed flawlessly from our Glock brand regular mags, the Glock brand sticks, the Extar Glock mags, some P mags, and shockingly enough with Korean RBW mags. I mean, I really was trying to get this guy to jam with a crappy mag, and I really just couldn't get her to stop, which really was a huge positive for me. I mean, like I kind of alluded to earlier, I have run some PCCs with Glock mags before that just kind of jammed and didn't function very well, and that was just not the case with the EP9. So kudos to Extar for actually making a PCC that runs on Glock mags and runs on these mags very efficiently. So after we tried all the different mag styles, we of course had to try this gun suppressed and unsuppressed, because it really does just look like this gun was was made to be suppressed. So one of the really cool things about the EP9 is that it kind of has this like almost integrally suppressed look to the handguard. So of course we had to run this bad boy with the suppressor as well. And just to kind of demonstrate side to side how it shoots suppressed versus unsuppressed, we're going to pop off 5 rounds unsuppressed, throw the can on, 5 rounds suppressed. So here is unsuppressed. And then here it is suppressed. So this did really just have a good recoil impulse, both suppressed and unsuppressed with the blast shield. And I actually found it really enjoyable to shoot with both of these muzzle devices. So over the course of the 1,000 rounds, we did about half suppressed and half unsuppressed. And with the can here, it did actually cycle reliably with both super and subsonic 9mm rounds. We have some 115 Blazer starting us off, and then it's gonna alternate to 147 grain Federal, alternating supersonic first, then subsonic. So again, another thing that really impressed me about the system, not only is it feeding from all these brands of Glock mags, but it's feeding all these kind of wonky rounds I was throwing through her as well. So that kind of brings us to the performance of the system over 1,000 rounds. And happy to report that we did not have a single malfunction or issue with this gun. No failures to extract, no failures to feed, no jams, really nothing. And again, that's shooting both suppressed, non-suppressed, and a couple different types of rounds. So we also did test the accuracy of this system. All right, so we're back here at the end of the range. We're about 40-ish yards from downrange. Now, I did not zero this optic, so say a prayer. Felt really nice. Let's see how we did. So there's our 5-round group there. As you can see, we kind of stacked 3 on top of each other. Then we kind of pulled these 2 with holes touching there. But actually not very bad practical accuracy out of a little 9mm PCC. So we were very happy with those results out of the EP9. We also kind of did a little comparison with the EP9 with a similar system in its lightweight and small class. So we're going to go ahead and compare the EP9 by Extar here to the Recover 2020N Glock and their chassis system. Although these are very different platforms, they're both 9mm guns, they're both incredibly lightweight, and they're both kind of fit for that like bedside gun PDW role. And to figure out which one we're faster with, we're going to rock some bill drills. So starting off with the EP9, this actually was a very snappy bill drill there. We got a 1.24 for that drill. So we'll go ahead and run that same bill drill with the Glock 17 Gen 3 in this little Recover Tactical chassis. So I got about the same amount of trigger freeze, but we were running a 1.38. I will say fairly similar times on this, but I will say the EP9 feels just a lot better to shoot, just because it is a little bit more of a stable system. And to be honest, if I wasn't running the suppressor on the EP9 here, they would actually be fairly similar sizes. So for how lightweight and inexpensive the gun is, she really did perform for us in that comparison. So once we kind of confirmed the efficacy of the system, I kind of started to think about what the best uses for this system would be and kind of who I would recommend it to. And I think there actually are a lot of people that would really enjoy this system. I think the biggest group that would really love this gun are kind of my ballers on a budget. I really do understand what it means to have a passion and enthusiasm for firearms and not have the most money in the world. But trying to cheap out on a gun can sometimes be a double-edged sword. I've definitely done my fair share of trying to save a couple $100, buying a cheap gun, optics, system, and just really having it crap out, and you're just not gonna get that experience with the EP9. Despite its cost, it's very well made, it performs incredibly well, and you're just not gonna have those malfunctions or issues with the gun. And not only is it an inexpensive weapon that runs, but a system that could actually be a very valuable nightstand gun, truck gun, home defense, PDW style system. It's incredibly lightweight and small, giving you the ability to store it in a smaller area, and performed incredibly well suppressed, so you really could run this like I have here, suppressor, flashlight, optic, nightstand gun, and we're ready to go. I mean, I ran 1,500 rounds through this bad boy and not a single malfunction. Would I trust my life to this as a nightstand gun? Absolutely, man. And again, just for the cost, I think that's really impressive. Another group that I think this gun would really resonate with is maybe a first-time gun owner. If you wanted something fairly inexpensive, but something fairly reliable, modular, and fun, I think this would be a great option. For the most part, it does kind of have our standard AR-15 control group, except for that left-sided charging handle. So you could kind of use this gun as an introduction to firearms or the AR-15 platform to kind of come in at a cheaper price point, but still get options to customize pistol grips and triggers, add optics, add M-lock accessories, suppress it if you want. I mean, it's just a very fun, low recoiling system that could really kind of break you into the firearm space if you were thinking about a first gun. But aside from those two groups, I really think it's just kind of fun for everybody. Obviously, I have a pretty extensive firearms collection, and I'm pretty comfortable shooting bigger caliber rounds, but man, I took this to the range and just had a blast. I mean, we all have a bunch of Glock mags laying around, so it was just a ton of fun for me to load these mags up and just get to mag dumping, doing drills, and really just kind kind of taken me back to having a good time with buddies at the range. I'm not saying this can't be a practical weapon system. It absolutely can. It didn't have any malfunctions, didn't have any issues, but it is just a very fun system. And it's okay to use it in that capacity. So even if you are an experienced firearm owner, you're not gonna regret adding this to your collection. So let's tie everything together here and answer the question, do I think this gun is worth the cost? And my answer to that is gonna be a resounding yes. For the cost, I think this is the best system you could buy for that money. I have had my share of cheap firearms and they have almost always been hunks of garbage, but this one really did impress me. We have an incredibly lightweight, modular system that ran flawlessly for over 1,500 rounds with no malfunctions, that actually serves as a really good suppressor host, takes some normal AR-15 components so we can increase our customization of the system, is chambered in a cheap and low recoiling caliber, that 9mm round, and was incredibly accurate and just overall an incredible amount of fun. So the EP9 by Extar is a total win in my book. I had a ton of fun reviewing this gun and I really do recommend it. So we really do appreciate you stopping by the channel and watching this review for us today. If you could do me a favor and subscribe to the channel, it helps me out an absolute ton and I really do appreciate it. And not only does it help me out, but we are gonna have some really awesome range reviews coming to the channel as we always do. The next range review dropping is gonna be the 1,000 round range review of the TWC Hex by Jacob Gray, so you're not gonna wanna miss that one. As always, we're wishing you a very safe and amazing week here from the MuzzleBroke channel, and I will catch you guys at the next MuzzleBroke video.